Hi, welcome. I'm Lorelai of Namasturm Yoga. This is going to be a level 1 yoga practice, so if you're new to yoga, join me. I'll walk you through it. So let's sit to start. This is one of the most common ways to start yoga practice. I do this very frequently in my classes. There are other ways to start, but we're going to start here. This just gives you, I think, a transition to take a little time to sit, cross your legs, bring your hands to your knees, try to align the spine, and we're coming to stillness in a position that probably we don't find ourselves in day-to-day life. I remember when I was in grade school and we did a lot of cross-legged sitting on the floor just to gather round. That was kind of what we did. But in my adult life, there are not a lot of situations that call upon me to sit in a cross-legged position, but here we are on our mats. So let yourself do this and just feel how, this is different from your day-to-day life. This is different than sitting on the couch or sitting at a chair at a table or a desk. Close your eyes. Check in with how you're feeling. And that may be simply on a physical level. Purely, my knee is aching, my back is hurting, my neck is stiff, whatever. But you might also notice other things that you're feeling. Give yourself a moment just to be present. And then maybe acknowledge that even in that brief moment, there were some things on your mind that were distracting you. That's normal. It's okay. But I think it's just good to be aware of that. And then our intent is to shift our focus so that the distractions aren't pulling us out of being present here on our mats, inside of our bodies. So let's shift the focus to the breath. And that will give us at least something to be aware of, something that's distinctly happening right now, so that maybe some of those other thoughts, things we're thinking about our day, or about the dream we had last night, maybe that shifts into the background as the foreground becomes all about the breath. Now that you've started to notice the breath, we're going to start to manipulate it just a little bit. So most yoga practices involve a little bit of breathing practice as well. And we're going to start with an ujjayi practice. So if you've done some yoga before, I'm sure you're very familiar with this practice. But the basic is that the back of the throat narrows a little bit, and the sound of the breath moving in and out is now we can hear it. So it creates a little rushing kind of whispery sound. This can be notable really easily with the mouth open. If we go, but when we bring our lips together, it's a little harder to hear. So you should be able to hear it for yourself, but it's not like we're creating a really loud sound. And then once you feel like you've got that sound going, see if you can even out the breath so your inhales and exhales are the same length and there's no pause in between. It becomes a little bit of a rhythm. There's almost a musicality to it. Or you can think of it more organically, like similar to the sound of waves moving on to the shore and then moving back out again. Just that steady, even tide or current or however you imagine it. We're going to start to now move to the breath just from the seated position. So hang on to your knees. On your inhale, move your heart forward and your shoulders back. And then as you exhale, go the other way. So round the shoulders forward, round your back. Inhale, come forward. Exhale, arch the spine. Now, in addition to connecting the breath to the movement, we're also warming up the spine. So you may have all of a sudden become very aware of places in your back where you're holding tension, and that's okay. We're not going to force it, so we're keeping it really easy here, slow and steady, but don't move further than your body wants to move. We get to one direction and then we just turn around and go the other direction, as opposed to pushing or, trying to really go into an extreme in one direction or the other. And then go ahead and come back to center. We're just going to take a simple forward fold over crossed legs. So take your hands down in front of you and then allow your upper body to come down. Maybe you get your forearms to the ground. Some of you might even find your head comes to the ground, but don't push for that. Don't lift up your hips. Just let yourself round and sink down. And then walk the hands in, come back up, and let's recross the legs. So just take the opposite shin in front, just for a little bit of balance. We're going to take the hands back to the knees, and we're going to start again. Inhale, heart forward. Exhale, spine back. I'm just going to kind of turn to the side in case this is hard to understand. Inhale, chest forward. Exhale, round it back. But now we're going to start to move it into more of a circle. So we're going to come forward as we inhale, but then we're going to go to the side and back as we exhale, and then to the side and forward as we inhale, and then to the side and back as we exhale. And keep following the pace of your breath. So we're not moving fast, but we are moving consistently, rhythmically. And we're going to, we're exploring a few more of those areas in the spine that might feel tight. It might feel really good to do this, and hopefully that is the goal, that it does feel pretty good. And then at some point we're just going to change direction. So just let yourself go the other way around. You might even find that you're almost like rolling from hip to hip a little bit as you do this. Let the range of motion get bigger and broader if that's possible for you. Maybe your arms extend as you lean back, and then they bend as you bring yourself around and forward. And then coming back to center, we're going to take one more fold over the shins. So they're crossed the other way this time, so you might feel this a little differently in your hips. Let yourself fold down, forearms to the floor, maybe the head comes down. Breathe. I promise we're going to get off our butts in just a moment. So we do like to warm up, but at some point you got to just start moving. Walk the hands in and come on up, and then uncross the legs. We're going to take the feet in front of us and we're going to come to a squat. So keep your feet about hip distance apart, and then use your hands to help you up off of your hips. Now, if this is too intense for your feet or ankles, keep your hips on the ground, wrap your arms around your shins. If you can come up into a squat, some of you will find that you must lift your heels, and that's okay. But if you can keep your heels down, keep them down, and then we're all going to just wrap our arms around our shins. Let the head hang down or draw towards your knees, curling in. Do the best you can with this one. This is another thing we don't do very often in day-to-day life, squatting, but our bodies are well designed to do it. So, see if you can get your legs, your knees, your hips, your ankles a little used to it. If it's causing you pain, ease up. We don't want to find ourselves in pain in our practice. Now, take your hands to the floor, and we're just going to straighten the legs. Now, not completely straight, but you want to keep your hands on the floor. So the knees can be pretty bent and might be very bent for you, and that's okay. And then we're just going to go a little bit back and forth here. So we're going to lower our hips back down and take the hands off the floor. Maybe your heels come up, that's okay. Exhale, bring the hands back to the floor and straighten the legs, folding down. And then bend the knees, come back to your squat. Exhale, folding over the legs, straightening them up a little bit. You should feel this working in the quads, and the hamstrings, of course, are working a bit as well. We don't want to strain them or force them open, but you can let them start to lengthen a little bit at a time. We'll do this one more time. So we're coming to the forward fold, And then we're coming to a squat. And then this last time, we're gonna come to a forward fold and we're gonna stay. So feet are still about hip distance apart. If you wanna bend one knee and let the other leg straighten, give that a go. And then switch to the other side. So there's a little bit of like working through the legs. The heels should be down at this point. So maybe it's just bending one knee at a time. And then let your hands come off the floor and just let your arms sway, dangle. If you want to grab your elbows, you can do that. Let the back of the neck get a little loose by nodding or shaking the head. Maybe swing the torso slightly. And then keeping the feet about hip distance apart. Let's release elbows if you've got them and roll all the way up. Finally, we're coming to standing. Once you're up, take your shoulders back and down. Just roll them back. Ooh. And then go ahead and reach the arms up on an inhale. Exhale, swan dive forward. Lead with the chest as you come to fold over the legs. When you get to the bottom, bend the knees and inhale. Roll back up again. And we're going to follow the breath some more here. Exhale, forward fold. I'm kind of turning to different directions on my mat, but feel free to be at whatever part of your mat is comfortable at this stage. I'll let you know when it kind of matters more. Exhale, forward folding. Bend the knees, inhale, rolling up. Exhale, forward folding. One more time, inhale, roll on up. And now walk to the front of your mat, and that can be either end depending on your space. So walk to the front of the mat. We're gonna take one more inhale up, exhale, forward fold. Now we're gonna take the right foot and step it back, all the way to the back of the mat. Really get it as far back as you can. And then we're gonna lower the right knee down. The left knee should still remain over that left ankle. Come on up for a low lunge here. So we're gonna sink the hips forward toward the front heel. Press the top of the back foot down. Take the arms up. And then we're gonna do a little side stretch. So we're gonna grab the right wrist with the left hand and just kind of pull. A little hard to, yeah, here, let me turn a little to the side so you can kind of see. But we're just gonna go to the side in the direction of the knee that's forward. Keep lunging your hips forward at the same time. Make sure you're still breathing. So of course we wanna always be breathing, but you can stay with that ujjayi practice that we started while we were still sitting. And then from here, let that go, take the hands back to the floor. Let's step the left knee back, but then we're gonna take it out to the side. So you can take it off the side edge of your mat, and then we're gonna take the left hand up into the air and twist open toward the ceiling. Breathing. So from the side, we're opening the heart towards the ceiling. Let the top arm lean back. Let the head look up if it feels okay with your neck. And then come on back to center and take both knees underneath you. We're gonna tuck the toes, lift the knees and hips, and move to first downward facing dog. So down dog is like an inverted V shape. The hips are the high point. The fingers spread wide and the hands really root down. The knees can be bent and the heels can be lifted, and especially in this first one, they probably should be. Now, see if you can straighten the right leg a little more and reach the heels slightly towards the floor, but keep the left knee bent. And then switch to the other side. So bend your right leg, slowly straighten the left leg, reach the heel to the floor. And then maybe one more time each side. Nice and easy here. Warming up in your down dog, and then we're gonna walk the feet forward between the hands. So coming all the way back to the front of the mat. Let's bring the feet together now so the big toes touch. The heels are gonna slightly be apart because our feet are parallel here. Fingers to shins. Reach your head forward away from your tail. So your back is nice and flat. This is like a half forward fold. It's called Ardha Uttanasana, which means half forward fold. And then we're gonna full forward fold again. And this time let's step the left foot back. So again, try to get it all the way to the back of the mat. Lower the left knee down extend your toes, and then come on up. So you might find you start with your hips right over your back knee, but see if you can lunge a little bit more forward. The front knee stays over the ankle. So if you have your front knee, your foot here, and your knee, you can see that that knee is going way past the ankle, and really we want to keep the shin supporting the knee joint. Now take the arms up, and we're going to do the other side stretch. So you'll grab your left wrist with your right hand and pull yourself over to the right. Breathing. And then come back to center. Take your hands to the floor. Step your right knee back, but then take your right leg out to the side so that it's right up from your hip, sole of the foot on the floor, and take your right arm up and twist open. So we're doing this other nice open twist here. Maybe let the head lean back, gaze up towards the ceiling. Breathe, always breathing. And then come on back to center. And let's go ahead now. Let's set up both knees. We're going to walk the knees back a little bit further. Keep your shoulders over your wrists, and let's lower the chest down between the hands. So the way to do this is to bend the elbows and then direct your chest between the hands, but don't let the hips come down sooner. Okay. Now let's take the forearms to the floor, elbows under shoulders. Prop yourself up in a nice Sphinx pose. Heart forward. Spread your fingers, root down through your hands, and if you're able, straighten up the elbows, come up a little higher, but still keep the space between the shoulders and the ears. And then if you're ready for Cobra, walk the hands in so that they're next to your chest, but try not to lock or straighten the elbows. We're going to bring them close, the elbows kind of tuck in by the sides, and they're a little bent here. Traction your hands back towards you like you're trying to pull your palms to your hip bones, and let the heart move forward. See if you can keep your legs really relaxed, the glutes kind of soft here, and then from here, tuck your toes. Use your abdominal muscles to lift your hips up, and then back to down dog. So notice in down dog, the shoulders are not over the wrists. They're way back. Our arms are at a diagonal. So the hands are at the front of the mat, and then the shoulders and the hips kind of line up from there. Breathe. And then we're going to drop the knees to the floor and take a child's pose. So child's pose is always an alternative to down dog. It's a lot more restful, but we have a similar thing going on with this length in the spine. So go ahead and take your forehead to the floor. And breathe here. Now from child's pose, let's go ahead and come to tabletop. So we can bring the shoulders back forward over the wrists, although the knees might be slightly further back than like a classic tabletop. Now tuck your toes, lift your knees and hips, move to down dog. Inhale, come forward with the shoulders over the wrists, and we're going to hold in plank pose. Fingers spread nice and wide, reach the head forward away from the tailbone, reach the tailbone back in the direction of the heels, and then the heels reach toward the back of the mat. Now let's go ahead and rock a little bit of our weight forward so that the heels stack over the balls of the feet, and the shoulders almost feel like they're coming forward over the wrists. Push through the heels again, and then inhale, come forward again. Now, if we want to lower down to the floor, we can take knees down first, but if you'd rather not, bend the elbows, keep the shoulders forward, keep the elbows by the sides, lower down all in one piece. That's going through Chaturanga Dandasana. It's challenging. Let's keep the hands next to the chest. Inhale, come on up, Cobra pose, and then exhale, we're back in downward facing dog, and breathe. Now from down dog, let's take the right leg up into the air. So keep your hip nice and squared off. And by that I mean basically your thigh is still facing the floor, the toes are still flexed downward, hands pressed down, head stays heavy. Look forward between your hands. Now, pull your knee into your chest, lift up, round the back, create tons of space. And then see if you can just plant your foot between your hands. If that foot does not make it all the way between your hands, if it's like stuck halfway back on your mat, use your hand to pull it forward. And then let's float up to a high lunge. So fingertips can start on the floor, reach through that back leg, make this back leg nice and strong, but then floating, just letting the upper body come up really nice and slow. Come all the way up, and then take the arms up, gaze forward, and breathe. Shoulders soft, though there's energy through the fingers. Look at one point to help with the balance. Lunge deep into the front knee, reach strongly through your back leg. One more inhale. Now hands are gonna come to the floor. Take your right foot and step it back to meet the left, but try to keep the shoulders over the wrists. Reach through the heels, reach through the head. Now we're gonna lower to the floor again. If you need to take knees down first, go for it. But if you'd like to go to chaturanga, so chaturanga dandasana occurs at a point where the shoulders and elbows are level. And then we can lower all the way down to the floor. Inhale, take a cobra pose, heart forward. Trying to let those, I see my feet splaying wide. I'm like, ooh, that's bad form. Tuck toes, lift knees and hips. Exhale, down dog. And we'll take the left leg into the air. So, lift the leg, toes flex downward. Breathe. And then, creating tons of space under the body. Move forward, tuck your knee in. Try to lift up, and then step that left foot all the way to the front of the mat. Reach through the back heel. Really elongate through the torso here for a moment. Strong back leg, and then light fingertips on the floor. Start to float up. See if you can stabilize through the legs as you come up. Come on up. Gaze forward. And then when you're ready, take those arms up. Still reaching through the back leg, lunging into the front knee. Shoulders soft. Energy through the fingers. Breathe. And then taking the hands back to the floor, we're going to step to plank again. So notice where we have our shoulders and hips here in this lunge is pretty much where we want them to stay in plank. And the back leg is also already in position. So really the only thing we're moving is the left leg, and we just step it back into place. Reach through the head, reach through the heels. If you want to flow down through chaturanga, do it, or knees to the floor. Inhale, cobra pose. And exhale, downward facing dog, and breathe. Inhale, look to the front of the mat. As you exhale, bend the knees and step, walk, or if you want to, you can even lightly hop all the way up. Inhale, take a half lift, so finding that nice flat back position. Exhale, fold down over the legs, and then reverse swan dive. So instead of rolling up, come up nice and strong all the way to the top of the mat, and exhale, palms together in front of the heart. Let's take a nice wide stance, but we're going to keep the right toes pointing forward. So take your left foot out really wide so you feel like you're in a big V or kind of a straddle here. Set up your front heel so it lines up with your back arch. And if you can take your feet further, take them a little further. We're going to go ahead and bend the front knee now, right towards the ankle. See if you can kind of keep your right hand on your knee to keep guiding it over the ankle. What we're going to do is we're going to slide that right hand down to the floor. Now, if you have a hard time getting it to the floor, you could use a block. So you would just put that block inside the foot and plant the hand on the block. But if you don't need it, if you can get your hand to the floor, go ahead and do that. And then you're going to try to push your arm against your leg and then take your top arm up and open. Reach into the outer edge of the back foot. Now this is a variation on extended side angle. So a classic extended side angle, the top arm is overhead and the arm is in a slightly different position, but our legs are in the same position as we would want them for Warrior Two. So we're going to use this to move up to Warrior Two. Think about the work that arm is doing to keep your knees stacked over your ankle and try to keep that as we slowly float the torso upright. Level out your hips, get the shoulders over the hips. And then you can just turn your head and look over your front fingers. This is Warrior 2. Virabhadrasana is the Sanskrit for warrior, or warrior pose. Front knee over ankle, and you should be able to now look down at your knee and see that your big toe is kind of peeking out inside. Now, this left hip, sometimes it's going to drop forward. We want ideally to start to work it a little more open. So do what you can. Don't hurt yourself, but that's sort of the work that we're doing in the pose. Turn the front palm up. Reverse warrior. I feel my front quad working, so hopefully you do too. It is working up there. One more inhale. And now, as we come out of this, we're just going to take both hands to the floor and step to plank pose. Again, shoulders, hips pretty level. If you want to take the vinyasa sequence, which is what we were doing earlier, you can take that by lowering down, come to your cobra pose, and then come to down dog. If you don't love that sequence and you don't want to take it all the time, just go to down dog. Down dog is kind of a nice place to stop in the middle, between sides. And if down dog is too intense for you, you can take a child's pose. Inhale, look to the front of the mat. Exhale, step or hop the feet forward. Inhale, take a half lift. Exhale, folding down, reverse your swan dive. Come all the way up, nice, strong, long spine. Palms together. All right, so let's step wide again, but this time we're gonna have the left toes forward, so I'm gonna imagine I'm stepping from the side, keep the left toes. And the legs are pretty wide here, so if we're using too little of our mat and we start to bend the knee, that knee's gonna go past the ankle, and that's not real good for the knee. So keep your feet really wide. Now, just kind of take your left hand to this, like the knee thigh area here, and as you're bending, make sure that knee is staying over your shin. And then we're gonna try to slide that left hand down to the floor, and again, use a block if you need it. And really get that arm and leg strongly connected. Take the top arm up. This is actually a nice kind of open twist here. We're using the arm against the leg to help us to open that top arm more. Push down to the outer edge of your back foot. So notice if you tend to lift up off your back heel or if you really roll to your arch, and instead reach through the pinky toe side of the foot. Now, really thinking about that connection that that arm is making with the knee, and imagine that you still have that connection as you start to float your body up to Warrior 2. Palms face down in Warrior 2. You should be able to see that your knee is over your ankle, but now this right hip maybe could be worked open a little bit more. So see if you can open it by strengthening that leg, letting the hips go open and wide. The arms stay out at shoulder height, and then you can just look over your front fingertips here. Breathe. If your front leg is really not very far bent, it's okay. But the goal is, as we spend time here, we're deepening the pose. Eventually, and we might need to widen the feet, but eventually that thigh becomes almost parallel with the floor. Turn the front palm up, reverse. Keep the knee bent in front. So as we reverse warrior, we're still lunging forward. We're working that front quad. And then cartwheel the hands to the floor around your front foot. And again, you can take your vinyasa if you'd like to. And then down dog. Breathe. Or child's pose. Inhale, look to the front of the mat. Exhale, step or hop the feet forward between the hands. Inhale, take a half lift. Exhale, fold down, and then reverse your swan dive. Come on up. Ooh. And let's step the feet wide again. This time again, right toes forward. We're gonna go into triangle this time, so the legs are gonna stay straight. Front heel and back arch line up. Arms out at shoulder height. So tuck your right hip in. So now instead of bending the knee to get forward, we're bending at the waist to get forward. So sides of the body stay long, but we're still facing this one direction. Maybe fingers come to your ankle or shin, or maybe back of the hand against the inner shin. Top arm goes up. Really try to press the feet down and lengthen through the sides of the body. Breathe here. Now let's go ahead and float up. And we're just going to parallel the feet and take a forward fold, and then we'll go to the other side. So now the outer edges of the feet line up with the outer edges of the mat. Bring your hands to your hips, lift your quads, and start to fold it down. Let your chest lead. And then about halfway, you can bring your hands to the floor. If those hands don't easily reach the floor, again, a block or a book or whatever you've got that can help prop your hands up so that they can rest on something. Fingers and toes line up. Lean forward toward the balls of the feet. Lift the quads. Let the head hang down heavy. So this is Prasarita Padottanasana, and you don't need to remember that, but you will start to recognize these terms as they come up again and again if you take a lot of classes. And then bring your hands to your hip bones, press the feet down, float on up. And we'll just do the other side triangle. So we're going to pivot on the left heel, turn those toes out, arms out, shoulder height. And again, we're not bending the knee, but we're kind of tucking the hip in, and the right hip is reaching to the right. Sides of the body stay long, so try not to lean forward. If you could imagine, like if your back was against the wall, you're still trying to get your shoulder blades to the wall behind you. Press the feet down, extend through the limbs, extend through the torso, look on up. And then float on up. Turn the feet in, and let's just jump the feet together. Okay, let's do a little balance work here. So we're going to start with tree pose. We're going to start standing on the right foot, take the sole of the left foot. The basic form is to the calf, right? If you need to modify it, you can keep your toes on the ground. It's okay. If you want to go for a little more advanced, use your hand to help you get the foot above the knee to the thigh. So not against your knee, please. Bring your palms together in front of the heart. And that's just for the safety of your knee, frankly. It's not because it's like, cheating. It's the safety of your knee is compromised if you're pushing against the side of your knee with your foot. If you can, take the arms up. Now, gazing at one single point ahead of you should help with balance, hopefully. All right, we're going to transition this pose. So bring your palms back together in front of the heart and let that foot go from your leg. See if you can pull the knee into the chest. We're going to go to a warrior three. So we're going to do a little bit of some warrior sequencing here. So the goal is going to be to push the foot back behind you and let the torso drop down. I'm going to show from the side, but that's the basic premise, is we're staying facing the same direction, but all of a sudden we're counterbalancing. We're like slow-mo karate kicking behind us, and the upper body is counterbalancing. The gaze can now maybe come to the floor. But I get it, sometimes it's easier to keep the gaze up a little to keep your balance, so do what you need to do. Push through that back heel, don't let the foot go slack. Now we're going to bend the front knee and step back really long, really, really long. So we're in a high lunge here. We're going to go to warrior one. So we're going to actually pivot that back heel down. So like warrior two, but we've got our feet about hip distance apart now. So your right foot is a little bit to the right of the center line of your mat. The left foot is a little bit to the left of the center line of your mat. Hands can come to your hips. Check and make sure that your hips are hip distance and they're across from each other. Now, if you stepped your back foot back and it didn't go very far back, give yourself lots of space between the front and back foot as you lunge into the front knee. Press into the outer edge of the back foot, so that's similar to warrior two. And then take the arms up, you're facing forward. If you want to, you can bring your palms together and just look up towards your thumbs. Breathe. And then take the hands to the floor. And we have a vinyasa opportunity. You can skip it, you can take it, up to you. And breathe here. So we're stringing some of our balance poses together with some of our standing poses. Just, it makes it a little more interesting than just going pose, stop, pose, stop. And we can kind of take things from one to the other. Inhale, look to the front of the mat. Exhale, step or hop the feet forward between the hands. Inhale, take a half lift. Exhale, fold down, and then reverse swan dive. Come on up. Now, you can stay facing the front of the mat. I'm going to turn. But because we know we're going to go from tree to warrior 3 to warrior 1, you can just kind of keep them all in sequence, and your foot position never needs to change. So we're going to stand this time on the left foot, solo the right foot to the calf, maybe toes on the floor, or all the way above to the thigh. And you help yourself out with the balance. I know some people like to stand near a wall if they're balancing, just because if they need to, they could put their hand on that wall real quick to catch themselves. So do what you need to do. Balance is like a fantastic skill that your body will learn if you give it a chance to practice. If you can, take those arms up. And we balance in life all the time. So you can imagine, you've got your hands full of groceries and you're trying to kick your car door closed or something like that. We're on one leg. It's good to be able to do that in a controlled way so that when we do it in life, we're not going to fall over then. Let's pull the right knee into the chest. Take your palms together in front of the heart. And again, now we're going to transition, so we're still balancing. We're going to try to move. So we have to counterbalance. So as the foot goes back, the upper body needs to go forward to counter balance. It's sort of just the way it works. The fulcrum is right here, like on this left hip, right above the leg that is straight and standing. Reach through the back heel, reach through the head. Breathe. Now, when we're ready to come out, I challenge you not to just quickly put the back foot down, but rather to bend the front knee and then try to find as far to the back of the mat as you can with that back foot. So once we come up, our lunge is really long. If your lunge didn't end up this long, then make the adjustment now, once the feet are down. Right foot slightly to the right, left foot slightly to the left, right toes turned out so you can root that back heel down and then lunge into that front knee. Attempt to keep your hips squared forward. Take the arms up. And then if you want to, bring your palms together. Gaze up towards your thumbs as you continue to lunge forward. And breathe here. Always breathing. And then hands to the floor. Again, you can step to plank, lower down, take a back bend. So this time I've been doing this, but I'm gonna show you really quick. If you're taking chaturanga and instead of cobra, you wanna come to up dog, you'll flip onto the tops of the feet, and really the thighs, the knees never touch the floor. So they're off the ground here, and they just stay off the ground. And then as you transition to down dog, you just roll over the feet. So it's a little more advanced, but it is something that's, simple and is definitely part of a basic practice that you can start to work on if you'd like to. Inhale, look to the front of the mat. Exhale, step or hop the feet forward between the hands. Inhale, take a half lift. Exhale, fold. Now we are going to go to chair pose. So bend the knees, sink the hips. We're definitely doing some quad work today. So the chair pose is kind of like it sounds. We're trying to imagine we're about to sit back into a chair, or you can even imagine you actually are sitting in a chair. Your spine is upright, the weight is on your heels. Take the arms up. We're going to add on from here, so you can stay facing the front of your mat, but I'm going to turn here. We're going to take the arms out at shoulder height, wrap the left arm under the right. Lift the elbows. So we're going towards eagle. Now we're going to keep the right leg bent, cross the left thigh, and then maybe those toes tucked behind the calf, but that's not going to be for everyone. And some of you might even choose to bring those toes to the floor to touch down to give you a little more stability. Lift the elbows, sink the hips. Now, from here, I'm going to turn to the side again so I can show you, because we're going to actually transition. I know I'm making you hold this pose. Let's go ahead and fold down. Level out the spine with the floor, and we're going to think about that warrior three that we just did. We're going to keep our arms wound, but now unwind the left leg. See if you can move it to the variation of warrior three. Reach through that back heel. Changing poses while balancing is not easy, but your body can learn it. Step back long. Now we're coming back to warrior one. So this is similar to what we just did, but we're going to keep our arms wound. And if you'd like, you can just stay here and lift the elbows, or maybe lean up and back. Really find more of a back bend. Point those fingers back behind you. Breathe. From here, we're actually going to exhale, open to warrior two. Arms out. Adjust your back foot. So now front heel and back arch line up. Inhale, reverse your warrior. And now let's take our classic extended side angle. Forearm to the thigh, top arm overhead, creating a diagonal. Root into the outer edge of the back foot. Keep space between your shoulder and your ear here. And breathe. All right, reverse warrior. Inhale, stretch it back. Boy, that front thigh did some work. Hands to the floor. Take your vinyasa if you'd like. And again, maybe that chaturanga. Flip over the feet, roll to the tops of them. Up dog. Exhale. Down dog and breathe. Inhale, look to the front of the mat. Exhale, bend the knees to step or lightly hop forward. Inhale, half lift, flat back. Exhale, fold deep. Bend the knees, sink the hips, coming through chair. And then we're going to go from chair to eagle as we did before. So this time, arms out. This time, the right arm is going to go under the left. So get the arms first. If it's hard to cross the upper arms, you could just put your hands on the shoulders, opposite shoulders. And now pick up your right leg and cross it over left. So thighs cross first, and then calves can cross if they can cross. But if they can't, don't worry. So now instead of just dropping the elbows to the chest, lift them up. Sink the hips down. Wind everything tightly. And I'm going to just turn on my mat. Now we're going to start to fold down. And the idea is not just to drop the chest, but to level yourself out with the floor. Fingers reach forward like an arrow. Head reaches forward as well. Now unwind your right leg. Straighten your standing leg. Push the right leg behind you. Variation of warrior three. Try to level out the hips. I know that's like last priority. First is probably not falling. Bend your front knee. Reach, reach, reach for the back of the mat. Step back long. Root down through the back heel. Lunge into the front knee. Straight back leg. Lift up if you want to. Look towards your fingers. Keep lunging the front knee forward. And then unwind the arms. Open out to warrior two. And that's going to require adjusting the back foot, so front heel and back arch line up. Inhale, reverse the warrior. Forearm to the thigh. Take extended side angle for a couple of breaths. Now the head in this pose classically turns and looks up under the arm and then tilts back to see the fingertips. Inhale, reverse the warrior. And exhale, hands to the floor. Make your way back to down dog. Maybe it's a vinyasa. Maybe it is just a direct flight. Breathe. And let's take the knees to the floor. Okay, so we've done a lot of standing poses. We've done some balancing poses. So there's different kind of categories of poses in yoga, and we kind of want to make sure we hit them all to get a balanced practice. So a few other things that we want to make sure to include are some idea of inversions. We're going to do a little dolphin here. Back bends, and twists and forward folds. So those are like 4 other categories, and those tend to sometimes be near the end of practice just because we're warmed up and we can get into some of those a little bit more easily. So for today, we're going to do a little dolphin pose for our inversion, which is not like a full-on let's come completely upside down inversion. It's more of an inversion prep, but it's also really good for core, and it's going to get into shoulders as well. So let's go ahead and set the forearms on the ground. Elbows are under shoulders, interlace your fingers, tuck your toes. Elbows under shoulders, I say just quickly, but it actually is pretty important that they're not wider than your shoulders because we want a strong foundation so that our chest doesn't slump down here. Tuck your toes, lift your knees and your hips. And this is like down dog, right? Except for we're on our forearms instead of our palms. Let the head hang down and, walk your feet to where they can easily be. Head, again, should not touch the floor, which means we're really pushing down with those forearms. Now, maybe, this is optional, see if you can lift the right leg up. So we start to get kind of a feel of almost an inversion, but just one leg at a time. And then take those toes back down, and then take the left leg up. And try not to kind of collapse as you're taking the leg down. So keep both legs really long and strong, and slowly replace your toes on the floor. Knees to the floor. And then let's take our hips back to our heels and take a little child's pose here. Your knees can be wide in child's pose so there's room between them for the belly to expand, but you can also do child's pose with knees together. Okay, and then let's take another one, and I'm going to give one more add-on here. So we're going to actually take some little hops in this one to get a tiny bit off the floor, but it's optional, right? So don't feel like you have to do it, and if it's scary, then just don't even worry about it, right? I just want to have that as an option for people who are interested in, getting a little off the ground time. So forearms to the ground, come on up, dolphin again. So again, if you want to just keep it simple, don't even worry about lifting the legs. Dolphin is a great pose in and of itself. Root down with the arms so that your shoulders are really working here. Head can hang free. Now, if you want to, take the right leg up. And then if you want to go that extra step, try to keep your lifted leg completely straight, but the bottom leg, you're going to bend the knee and take a little spring off the toes. And then it should be a spring landing too, so that the knee bends as you land. But the top leg is straight. I'll tell you, keeping the top leg straight and bending the bottom knee is a challenge in and of itself. Take your right foot down, take the left leg up. So if all you work on today is keeping that top leg straight while you bend the bottom knee, great, that's progress. If you want to take the little hops, make sure you can catch yourself carefully. Feet down, knees down, another child's pose. This one, if you want to, take the arms up, flip the palms up, bend the elbows, bring the hands to your shoulders here. Okay, and then come on up carefully. And then I like going from that to camel because we're on our knees, so we're like right ready to go. So come to your knees. For camel pose, this is a back bend. So we're gonna go ahead and basically the shape is like an up and back arch. Tuck your toes for the first one. If you're gonna bring your hands to your heels, it's a little closer, and you can just sort of do this like little exploratory prep and just like, oh, okay, here's my heel. Oh, okay, here's my heel. Like, they're not that far away, but that's not the way we're gonna get them, right? So we're gonna try to come up and drop the arms behind us and get them from here. We wanna keep the hips over the knees. So the tailbone is tucking under, and that's to help keep the low back safe. Bring your hands to your waist, and that's a really great reminder there. Like, okay, my hands are pushing my hips kind of forward. That's helping to tuck my tailbone. So really encourage that. Then the heart lifts and the shoulder blades dig underneath your upper back to move the heart up and forward. The chin can stay in or the head can go back. And then here, if you feel like you're able to reach for the heels, the hands just drop straight down from the shoulders. The heart is still up and forward, and then you're pushing into the heels to dig the shoulders deeper into the upper back, to move the heart forward. Keep your hips over your knees, and then if you want to drop the head back, it goes all the way to the shoulder blades. When you're ready to come up, you'll put your hands back on your waist. Head comes up last if that was back. Come up carefully. Keep your toes tucked. Sit back on your heels, a little toe stretch here. So back bends can be super invigorating. They can be really therapeutic, but we want to make sure that they're well aligned, right? Because you don't want to hurt your low back in trying to stretch the upper back. This is actually where we have most of that we tend to like hunch forward during our day when we're typing or driving or doing dishes or whatever it is that we're doing. So that's what we're actually trying to do, is work this upper part of the back or the mid back and open the heart, as opposed to feeling like we want a deep bend in this low back, which has a natural curve to it. So we want to protect that space. And again, we do that by tucking the tailbone and actually taking some of the curve out of the low back. So we're supporting. Maybe this next one, extend the feet. Now, if you were keeping your hands on your waist the whole time, it really doesn't matter how far away the heels are, because you're not going to reach for them, and that's great. If you are going to reach for your heels, if the feet are extended, they're a little further away. So it's making the pose deeper or giving you that opportunity. Keep the hips over the knees. Again, if you reach down and you're like, oh, I cannot find my heel, just put your hand back on your waist. It's fine. You're still back bending. If you can reach the heels, then root in to the heels with the fingers. Dig your shoulder blades deeper into the upper back. Keep thinking of moving your hips forward and maybe let that head go back. Breathe. We're trying to soften and let go, but if you feel pain in this pose, you'll need to find a way to ease up. It should not hurt. 2 more breaths if you've got them. And then support yourself around the waist. Come on up carefully. Whew. And sit back on the heels. So like I said, invigorating. Backbends feel challenging, right? So they seem like they take a lot of energy, but they actually can kind of charge you up. So they're nice to do in the morning. Take your hands behind you. Let's lean back. And wait. We're going to lean back and lift the knees so we get a stretch for the tops of the feet. And then come back. Now, we'll do some twisting. So twists are great after back bends because they tend to more neutralize the spine. So we're going to drop to the left hip, and then we'll step the right foot over. If you have a hard time getting both sit bones down and this left foot or this right foot on the floor with the left leg tucked underneath you, you can take that bottom leg straight out below you. And that makes it a little easier, but if you can keep those feet tucked in, go for it. And then you're gonna wrap the left arm around the right knee, or you could take it past and then turn over your right shoulder. Little twist. Breathe. So in this twist, it's pretty obvious that the right shoulder is going back, but we don't also want the right hip to go back because then we're more like a leaning. If we can think about moving the right hip forward as the right shoulder goes back, then we're doing a little more ringing. So we can really get in there. So twists are good to neutralize the spine, but they also can tend to like stimulate our internal organs and bring some blood to the intestines, things like that. They can, theoretically anyways, I don't know, how profoundly this works, but it can help with digestion for that reason. Let's come around to the other side. So switch the legs out. And again, if you need that bottom leg to be straight out in front of you, please make that adjustment for yourself. We're gonna wrap the right elbow around the left knee or take it past. So the arm is opposite to the leg, right? So, and we can twist the other way. Like there's no reason you can't twist that way, but I think you get a little bit more leverage going the opposite way. So we're turning towards the knee that is up using the opposite arm. I think I've just complicated it more. The left shoulder moves back, but the left hip, and it's not moving a lot, but it's just we're sending it kind of forward. And then come on back to center. And let's just take the legs and shake them out. So the other thing that I didn't really mention that we can also work on in a practice is a little bit of core work. So before we actually come and finish up with some forward folds, we're gonna do just a little bit of, we're actually gonna come to our backs and we're gonna take ourselves down. And we're gonna lift the hips up and sit on the backs of our hands. And the reason for this is we're actually trying to slightly tuck our tailbone in so that the low back makes contact with the ground. So you can kind of sit on your hands and find a placement that makes sense for you and then take the legs into the air. So this core practice, our goal, our intention, our objective is to keep the low back on the ground. But our obstacle is that we're going to be moving the legs and it's going to make it harder. So that's what we have to do. So think about like pushing down from your navel directly towards the floor to kind of push that low back into the ground. And then at the same time, we're going to slowly lower the right leg to the ground, keep the left leg up, but keep your low back down. Don't let the heel touch the floor. We're not dropping or using momentum. And then slowly let that leg come back up to meet the left. And then the other side. So the left leg is going to go down. And again, we're creating the obstacle, but our main job is to keep the low back down. The legs are moving slowly, which makes it a little harder, but it also makes us much more able to stay aware of what's happening moment by moment. So if we start to move the legs really quickly, oftentimes it prevents us from being able to control what's happening with the low back because it's just happening too fast. So we're really taking it moment by moment, one leg at a time. You can advance by doing both legs together. But again, what we don't want to happen is for that low back to sort of seize up and pop up from the floor, because that can actually strain the back. We're trying to work the core, which ultimately will help support the back. And then we're going to do one more each side. So again, nice and slow. You should feel this. Keep that low back pressing down, really rooted into the ground. One more time. If you are in a different pace than me, make sure you've done both legs the same amount of time. And now let's just bring the knees into the chest and roll them around in a little circle. And now we can kind of massage the low back against the ground and then go the other way. And while we're here on our backs, we're going to do just a little bit of a really basic hip opener. This is kind of a version of pigeon that we can do on our backs. It's real safe for the knees. We're going to step the right foot to the floor, cross the left ankle above the right knee. So you've kind of got a little triangle in here. And then reach behind your right thigh with your hands, pick up the right foot, and then pull your legs towards you. So both legs are coming towards you, but your shin is coming towards you like more directly. Use your left elbow, if that's in front of your left knee or shin or a thigh, to kind of push away. So you're using your hands to pull your thigh closer, which is drawing your ankle towards you. You're using your left elbow to push the knee away, so your shin becomes parallel to you. And you can just keep your head and shoulders on the ground here. Breathe, and then if you want to add on a little bit, you can take that right leg straight. And it might not get completely straight. Don't worry if you can't like straighten the knee completely, but maybe flex, point the foot, or turn the ankle around in some circles and just work out that foot/ankle a little bit here. And then carefully let that go, and we're going to switch sides. So the left leg's going to come to the ground, cross your right ankle above your knee, so it's across the thigh. You've got this little triangle. Lift up your left foot, reach your hands behind your thigh, and the right hand is reaching like inside underneath the right leg and then behind the left thigh. And then use your right elbow to push your right knee open as you use your hands to pull your leg towards you, which is drawing your right ankle towards you. Explaining these things sometimes makes it sound more complicated than it really is. Breathe. And then if you did on the first side, if you'd like to straighten up your left leg a little bit, maybe a little turn it around, flex point. And then let that go. Bring the shins in. Let's rock shoulders to hips a couple times. Let's hit a boat pose the last time we roll up. So if you're not familiar with it, you shall soon see. But what we want to try to do is roll and land, balancing on our sit bones with the legs out. Like almost a little V here. And then take the feet to the floor. So the last thing we'll do before we complete the class is just a simple forward fold. So we're going to take Paschimottanasana, which is just a seated forward fold. But we're starting in Dandasana, which is staff pose. And basically that's where your legs are straight out and your torso is straight up. And it's actually pretty stiff. You can bring your hands by your sides. The feet are flexed, the legs are engaged, the torso is really nice and long, and your gaze is forward. Now, we're going to keep the leg part of this, but as we go to our forward fold, we're going to significantly relieve the tension in the upper body. So let's go ahead and we'll just float into it a few times here. So inhale, take the arms up, keep the legs toned, but exhale, just sort of drape out over the legs. And then we're going to inhale, roll back up, reach the arms. Exhale, drape out over the legs. Sweep back up on an inhale. Exhale, almost like you're swan diving over the legs, like you would be in a standing forward fold. Inhale, roll back up, and then this last time, we're gonna hold. So wherever your hands get to, if they get to your feet, wonderful, but if they don't get to your feet, don't sit here and strain for them. Just take your hands to the floor along the sides of your legs. Keep the legs toned, the feet are still flexed, but that upper body, it can just release. And now on a very small scale, you can continue that sense of what we did, when we were coming up and then lowering, but it's very small. So inhale, maybe a little lift and lengthen, breathe up out of the pose. Exhale, as the air goes out of you, you can sink down deeper into it without pushing or forcing. Very subtle, almost internal, imperceptible, but you can sense it. So that with each breath, the pose is deepening and growing, staying alive. We're going to take about 3 to 5 more breaths here. Make sure you're still working with the ujjayi. And then when you're ready to come on up, walk the hands in, come up nice and slow, nice and easy. Cross the legs. As always, I encourage you to take 5 to 10 minutes after this practice to come to the floor for Shavasana. Shavasana basically looks like this. Nothing to it. Really nothing. You want to have it feel like nothing. Effort-free stillness. Giving yourself 5 to 10 minutes at the end of the practice for that is really, it really is the way that we complete the practice. So I really encourage you to do that in your own time, in your own space. If you want to turn off lights, put on socks, anything that makes it comfortable for you, please feel free to do that. But I'm going to close out my portion of the practice with you here. So go ahead and come to a cross-legged position. Bring your palms together in front of the heart. Close your eyes. Tune into your breath. Check in with yourself and just notice what's going on for you now. Are you feeling any different than you did when we first began? And then we'll close today with just a simple bow forward. The light in me recognizes and honors the light in you wherever you are. Thank you so much for joining me today to practice at home. Namaste. Wonderful. Thank you again. So as you're making your way to Shavasana, just a reminder, if you enjoy these practices, feel free to share them with anyone else you think would like to practice along with me. And if you have any questions or concerns, you can always put comments on this video. I appreciate it. Yay.